The first thing they heard was the clang of a mop bucket. Then came the laughter. 3 seniors leaning by the lockers, their arms crossed, grinning like hyenas at the man in the navy jumpsuit. "Careful, old man, you missed a spot," one said, kicking a soda can across the polished floor. Mr. Raymond Harlow didn't look up. He just steadied the mop, his movements slow, steady, almost military. The sound of bristles on tile echoed down the hall, rhythmic, calm, unbothered. "Hey, another snickered bet. He's been cleaning this dump since Lincoln was president." Laughter, phones out, recording. Ray paused only long enough to straighten his cap. His eyes, pale, unflinching, met theirs for half a second. Then he said softly, "Boys, someday, you'll learn the floor you mock is the one holding you up." They laughed harder. None of them noticed the small blue box half hidden in his locker, the one that once held a folded flag and a medal that could silence a room. That silence was coming. Soon. It had been 23 years since Raymond Ray Harlow first picked up a mop at Eastview High. Back then, the school still smelled like chalk and floor wax, and the principal wore bow ties. Now everything was digital screens and budget cuts. But Ray stayed. He liked the routine. He liked knowing which window caught the morning sun first, which hallway creaked when kids ran late. Most people saw him as part of the background, invisible. Except Mrs. Delaney, the librarian. She'd leave him a thermos of coffee on cold mornings. Once she'd said, "You move like a man who's been trained to do things right." Ray just smiled. Old habits die hard. Every morning at 6:30, he'd raise the flag outside the main entrance. He did it quietly, precisely fold, attach, hoist, salute. The students never noticed. Some laughed when they saw him salute the flag. Others filmed him for TikTok. He didn't mind, not much. But that Friday was different. It was Honor Student Assembly Day, when seniors got awards for grades, sports, and community service. The gym was packed, banners hung crooked, and the principal buzzed with fake enthusiasm. Ray worked the aisles, collecting stray candy wrappers. Behind him, 3 boys, Eli Carter and Jake, laughed too loudly. They'd been the same ones from the hallway incident. "Hey, Janitor Joe," one called out. "You missed a spot right here." He kicked his soda can toward Ray again. The can rolled to a stop by Ray's boot. He looked down then at them, and for the briefest moment the air changed like before a storm. He bent down, picked up the can, and said quietly, "Someday, son, you'll stand where I'm standing, and wish you'd done better." "Yeah," Eli smirked. "What are you, my grandpa?" Ray smiled faintly, something like that. The crowd laughed. He turned back to his work. What no one knew, not the teachers, not the students, not even the principal, was that Ray Harlow once had another uniform. Olive drab. Patch 1st Cavalry Division. Vietnam, 1968. And that under his modest shirt, in a drawer back home, sat 3 medals. One of them, a small star-shaped one, could make even generals stand at attention. But he never told anyone. Because to him, honor wasn't what you wore, it was what you carried. And the day would soon come when that truth would fill the auditorium, and the laughter that once echoed in the halls would turn into silence you could feel. They called his name by accident. Midway through the Honor Student Assembly, the principal fumbled a card and said, "We'd also like to recognize, Mr. Harlow for his years of service, keeping Eastview clean." It was filler and afterthought between a robotics trophy and a varsity letter. The applause was polite and thin. Ray didn't move. But someone else did. From the front row, a woman in a navy blazer stood up so quickly, her chair screeched. She was early 40s hair, tucked behind one ear, the kind of posture people keep when life has handed them a load and they refuse to drop it. She walked to the stage steps and touched the principal's elbow. "May I?" she asked, not waiting for the answer. The mic caught the tremor in her voice. "Good morning. I'm Dr. Claire Monahan, class of 2001. I came today to present a scholarship in my father's name." She swallowed. "But before that, I need to correct something." Ray had gone still at the sound of her last name, Monahan, like a road sign you haven't seen in years, and suddenly you know where you are. Claire scanned the bleachers, then pointed toward the side aisle, where Ray stood with his trash bag looped through one hand. "Mr. Harlow," she said, "would you please come up?" Eli elbowed Carter. "Showtime," he snickered. Jake lifted his phone to record. Ray didn't rush. He eased the bag onto the floor, straightened his cap, and took the shallow stairs like a man who knew what wooden steps could do if you forgot to respect them. When he reached the podium, Claire didn't speak. She just looked at him. Really looked, and her eyes filled. A ripple of confusion moved through the gym. "Students," she said, turning to the mic, "you don't know this man. Not really. But my family does. My father does." She pulled a small black frame from her tote and held it up. It was a sun-faded photograph jungle behind smoke, curling a young soldier, carrying another across churned mud face, set like stone. The gym's hum dropped, as if someone had closed a door. "This picture hung above our mantel my entire childhood," Claire said. "My father, Sergeant Patrick Monahan, wouldn't let us dust it. He said, 'That man carried me out when the world was on fire. If you ever meet him, you stand up.' He never told us the name. He just called him the Quiet One." Her hand lowered, and she turned to Ray. "It's you, isn't it?" Ray could have lied. Pride is sneaky that way. It dresses up as humility and tells you to keep your head down. But there's a kind of truth that doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the people who kept it to the ones who wrote letters by nightlight to men missing from the table. He nodded once. Claire breathed out like she'd been underwater. "Mr. Harlow carried my father a quarter-mile under fire in Quang Tri, 1968. He went back twice for the radio man and a kid who just learned to shave. He refused morphine so the medic could save the others." The citation, her voice snagged the citation, says he moved with deliberate calm under sustained fire, placing his body between the wounded and the enemy. Phones lowered, even Jake's. Eli folded his arms tighter, but his smirk had slipped. Ray could feel the old weight in his hands, a man's belt dug into his palm, the other's breath warm against his neck, the slap of rotor wash when the bird came in, too low, and dust turned daylight to blood-colored fog. He heard again the crew chief yelling over the engine. "We can take 3," and Ray counting with his chin, deciding who got thrown in and who he would drag farther, because you never leave a man where you found him. He smelled metal and rain and the acid tang of fear you swallow so the kid watching your back believes you don't feel it. Back in the gym, Claire laid the photo on the lectern as carefully as a folded flag. "My father lived. He saw me graduate medical school. He held my son the week before he died." She faced the bleachers. He said, "Courage doesn't shout. It endures." The principal blinked at the card in his hand as though words might jump off and explain the world. The band teacher, a Marine reservist, had tears in his eyes he didn't bother to hide. Mrs. Delaney from the doorway pressed a knuckle to her mouth. "Mr. Harlow." Claire said softer now, "I found your name last month while digitizing Dad's records for the local VA." The clerk read the citation and looked at me like I'd brought a ghost to the counter. She reached into her tote again and drew out a velvet blue box, the old kind, with brass corners. I asked the school if today I could do something my father never got the chance to. She opened the box. Inside against the satin lay a medal Ray had seen only on formal days, and funerals a 5-pointed star on a ribbon, the color of sky. The breath left the room. Ray shook his head. "No, ma'am," he said under the murmur. "That stays where it belongs." With respect, she whispered, "It belongs where people can see what honor looks like." She didn't pin it on. She simply held it up high enough that the back row could see the blue catch the gym lights. The students leaned forward as one body. "That man you filmed in the hallway," she said, eyes on Eli's row. "He raised your flag this morning at 6:30. He's raised it every morning for 23 years. He doesn't do it for likes. He does it for men who didn't come home." No one laughed. It wasn't that kind of sound anymore. The principal, finding his voice, said hoarsely, "Ladies and gentlemen, please stand." Folding chairs scraped. Sneakers shuffled. Somewhere a drumstick clicked against a snare, then went still. The seniors, those boys with hard shoulders and harder jokes, rose with everyone else. Jake lowered his phone and let it hang against his thigh like a thing he didn't want to be caught holding. Ray didn't look at them. He looked at the photograph, then at the box, and finally at the flag in the corner of the gym. He gave it the smallest nod. The silence that had been coming all morning arrived, full and complete. And in it, a thin new sound, respect learning to speak. The gym didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. Then someone in the band section, a quiet kid with freckles, stood and lifted his hand in a crisp salute. Another followed. Then a row. Then a section. Like ripples chasing a stone. Ray's first instinct was to make himself smaller. Years of disappearing into the edges will do that to a man. But Claire touched his sleeve, barely a tap, and the message in it was simple. Stand the way you stood then. So he did. Shoulders back, chin level, not proud, just present. The principal fumbled his mic again. "Mr. Harlow? Ray? Would you say a few words?" Ray eyed the microphone like it might bite. He didn't put his mouth to it. He stood a foot back and let his voice be what it was, gravel smoothed by time. "I'm no speechmaker," he said. "I push a broom. I like clean floors. They keep people from falling." A little nervous laughter trembled and died. "I wore another uniform once," he continued. "Some boys didn't come home. When I got back, I promised I wouldn't waste the days they couldn't use. So I work. I try to do it right. I try not to complain." He glanced toward the seniors, and I remember being young and dumb and sure I was bulletproof. He let the line hang there, not accusing, inviting. Eli shifted. Color crept up his neck, like heat. Jake looked like he wanted to disappear into his hoodie. Carter scratched a groove on the bleacher with a fingernail and couldn't meet Ray's eyes. Ray turned to Claire. "Your dad, he was funny. He told a joke while I was dragging him. Something about bad chow. I told him he could complain to the cook if we made it out. He said, 'Deal.'" Ray's mouth tilted. He kept that deal another 50 years. That's a good run. A gasp of a laugh, wet grateful, escaped Claire. She set the blue box on the lectern with both hands the way you set down a newborn. From the back doors, Mrs. Delaney walked in, carrying something wrapped in tissue. She climbed the side steps like a woman on a mission and presented Ray a narrow shadow box with glass. Inside, mounted on black felt, were a folded flag patch, 3 service ribbons, a photocopy, and a brass plate. She'd made it in secret over the last week. After Claire called her, she'd guessed but hadn't been sure. Ray swallowed hard. "You shouldn't have." "We should have," she said. The principal, finding a long-lost backbone, turned to the bleachers. "Seniors, I'd like to amend our program. Before we hand out any more trophies, we're going to listen." He faced Ray. "Would you tell them what honor looks like? When there's no one watching." Ray thought for a moment. The gym waited. "It looks like taping the end of a mop so it doesn't scratch the floor," he said. "It looks like putting the flag up even if your fingers hurt in winter. It looks like not filming a man when you could offer him your hand." He swept the room and his eyes stopped gentle but direct on Eli, Jake, and Carter. "And when you mess up and you clean it up better than it was before." The words landed where they needed to. Eli stood abruptly. His chair squealed back. Heads turned. His face worked through pride, fear, then something with a spine to it. He stepped to the aisle. The walk to the stage wasn't long, but he made it feel like a mile earned. On stage, he didn't take the mic. He just faced Ray and said, voice thin but clear, "Sir, I'm sorry. I was trying to get a laugh. It was stupid." He nodded at the frame behind the lectern. "My grandfather was in the 101st. I should have known better." Ray didn't make it easy or dramatic. He nodded once. "Thank you." Jake and Carter followed, awkward and red-eared. "Sorry, sir," they muttered. "Not a performance." not theater, something that stung going down and would settle right later. Claire looked at the principal. He knew a cue when he saw one. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said in recognition of extraordinary service to this country and to Eastview High, "we would like to present Mr. Raymond Harlow with the Eastview Medal for Civic Honor." A student council kid, skinny tie, serious as a judge, brought out a ribbon with a medallion that looked humble next to what lay in the blue box. But when he lifted it for Ray, the gym clapped the way Americans clap when they mean it, ugly, heartfelt, unsynchronized, real. The band teacher raised his baton. The first notes wobbled, then found each other. Not the anthem Ray had requested, no fuss, but America, the beautiful, slow and low, the way funerals use it, when they're reminding you that grief and gratitude live in the same house. Kids cried who didn't think they could. Teachers wiped eyes with the backs of their hands. Jake stopped recording and, without looking around, first tucked his phone in his pocket. Ray let the ribbon rest against his chest. He didn't touch the blue medal. He didn't need to. You don't wear a storm to prove you survived it. Claire leaned into the mic. "My father said some men chase glory." Mr. Harlow carried it, quietly. She turned to the lower rows. "Stand up if your father or mother served. Your grandparents, your aunts, uncles." Bodies rose in patches like wheat finding the wind. Keep standing if you've ever been helped by someone who didn't tell you their price first. Now the whole gym was on its feet. The twist, if that's what you want to call it, wasn't only that the janitor had been a hero. It was that the boys who mocked him were the first to learn what decent men do. They face their mistake in public and they change. And the room felt it, the pivot from shame to respect, from spectacle to witness. For the first time all morning, Ray let a full breath run to the bottom of his lungs. He looked out at them, at the flag in the corner, the kids who'd be men before they knew it, the woman whose father had kept a promise for half a century, and he thought, maybe this is what clean looks like when it's done right. The assembly ended late. No one hurried for once. Students came by in small knots, awkward at first, shaking Ray's hand like they were touching history and trying not to break it. Mrs. Delaney pressed a fresh thermos into his palm. "Hot chocolate," she whispered. "Don't argue." He didn't. Eli and his friends hovered until the crowd thinned. Eli lifted his chin. "Sir, there's a mess by the senior lockers. We made it. We're gonna fix it." He held up a roll of heavy-duty trash bags like a white flag with handles. "If you'll show us how to do it right." Ray's mouth made that almost smile again. "Boys," he said, "I've been waiting 23 years for someone to ask that." They followed him down the hall, heads a little lower, backs a little straighter. He taught them the mop diagonal that gets into corners, how to cut tape without leaving glue ghosts, how to buff a scuffed tile so the light loves it again. The work was quiet and not at all small. At the end, Ray showed them how to coil a cord the correct way over and under, so it doesn't kink, and Jake, to his own surprise, said, "That's satisfying." "It is," Ray said. By last bell, the story had spread. Not the internet's hot kind. The other kind, the steady relay through mouths you trust. Did you hear? Did you see the mocking video that might have traveled didn't? It sat in Jake's phone like a bad idea that had cooled. Out by the flagpole, Claire found Ray. The afternoon had turned honest blue. A breeze ran the fabric up there into little waves. "Do you mind if She lifted the blue box. Ray took it and closed it gently. "I've kept the original in a drawer," he said, "for men whose names I still say now and then." He offered the box back. "But this one can stay at the school. People learn better from what they can touch." Claire nodded, throat tight. "I'd like to hang your photo next to it," she said. "Not the war one. The one where you're raising the flag at sunrise. The custodian doing his job." She smiled. "So they know honor looks like morning work too." The principal approached contrite and earnest. "Mr. Harlow Ray, I'm sorry today's recognition started as a throwaway line. It won't be again." He cleared his throat. "We'd like to start a scholarship in Sergeant Monahan's name and yours, for students who serve siblings, Neighbor's the kid who changes the tire on a rainy night. The small, brave things. Ray scanned the sky and shrugged like he was deciding whether to accept a compliment or let it pass. Make the application 1 page, he said, and make 'em prove they know how to show up on time. They laughed true, unguarded laughter that made nobody small. Eli jogged from the doors, hair still damp from effort. Sir, the floor, it shines. He grinned without embarrassment. I didn't know it could shine like that. It always could, Ray said. You just have to care long enough to see it. He walked to the pole at 3:30, the time he always lowered the flag. Eli, Jake, and Carter lined up without being told. Ray showed them how to keep the fabric from touching the ground, the fold that ends with a triangle, the tuck so neat it looks inevitable. When they were done, Eli surprised everyone, including himself, by saying, "Permission to salute, sir." Ray shook his head. Then he lifted his hand first. The boys followed. That weekend, there were small changes that weren't small. The seniors who'd been loudest in their ridicule showed up for the Saturday grounds clean. A shy girl from the back row wrote an op-ed for the school paper titled "Honor Isn't a Costume." The band teacher put "America the Beautiful" in the spring concert without apology. And on Monday morning there were 3 extra pairs of hands at the flagpole waiting for Ray. He taught them the names on the memorial plaque by the entrance. Read one each day, he said. Say it out loud. People deserve to be said. A month later, the shadow box hung in the main hall, the photo of a sunrise. The ribbons, the little brass plate, Raymond Harlow. Quiet duty, loud lessons. Students tapped the glass like a promise as they passed. Claire returned for the scholarship ceremony. She brought her little boy, Patrick, who stared at Ray like boys do when their world gets a new hero. After the awards, the kid tugged Ray's sleeve. "Mr. Harlow," he whispered, "were you scared?" Ray crouched, careful knees complaining. Every time he said, "Bravery's what you do with it." That night, Ray walked home along the quiet street, his feet knew by heart. The air smelled like cut grass and grills starting up. He opened his door to a kitchen that had learned the language of 1 cup, 1 plate, 1 fork. He set the old blue box on the table. He didn't open it. Instead, he took off his cap, rubbed the ring it had left in his hair, and looked out the window at the dusk. A flag down the block snapped once, then settled. Some men chase glory. Ray had carried it, then put it down where others could find it. He washed his cup, dried it, put it back exactly where it belonged. Outside, the town's last light slid off the school's polished floor and went quiet. In the morning, he'd raise the flag again. Not because anyone was filming, because some things, if you're lucky, become who you are. And that's the lesson the one older Americans know in their bones and younger ones have to learn a little at a time. Honor doesn't ask for a stage, but when you give it one, it teaches everybody where to stand.